In having an opportunity to reflect on our 7th annual Overdose and Prevention Vigil, it gave me an opportunity to look back on the more than 20 years that I've served as a prosecutor and the change in the attitude and perspective towards substance use disorder that I've witnessed. Years ago, the attitude from some was that if someone has a drug problem and they commit a non-violent crime related to substance use disorder, they needed to be punished. That attitude has certainly changed. Surely there are cases where punishment may still be appropriate, but more people now realize that substance use disorder is a disease and that folks with the disease need treatment. The Overdose and Prevention Vigil provides an opportunity for the community to come together in person to celebrate, grieve, support, and remember. We celebrate, grieve, and remember those loved ones, family, and friends that we've lost to an overdose. We celebrate and support those in recovery, whether it be for 1 day or 1,000 days. And we support those continuing to struggle with addiction and let them know that there are people who care and are willing to help them with their struggle. I like to think that events like the Vigil have played a small part in helping change the perception of addiction. But this event is not isolated in the work that has been done to change the outlook on substance use disorder. Throughout the community, there is work done daily by other people, groups, and organizations to change attitudes. Our law enforcement partners take a much more proactive approach in encouraging treatment to those people they have contact with on the front lines. The Carroll County Health Department and Carroll Hospital Center peer programs have provided mentors and positive role models to those in the recovery community. Our local nonprofits who've worked with our court systems to ensure that there are sufficient treatment options available for individuals facing the possibility of incarceration until a bed is available in treatment. The work and actions of all these people and more are what is helping to change attitudes. And when we can change attitudes, we can provide an environment where those in addiction will feel safe and supported when they reach out for help. That feeling will move us in the right direction in reducing the number of overdoses suffered by our friends, our families, and our loved ones. Our first speaker is a peer recovery specialist for the Carroll County Health Department and has been one since 2017. He is a peer recovery specialist assigned to our drug court program and speaks to local teens in the community about the dangers of substance use disorder and assists the state's attorney's office Special Ops High School program. He is a husband, doting father of 3, an advocate and voice for local recovery, and a leading example to our community of resilience and determination. It's my honor to introduce to you Jermaine Thornton.
Good evening. I had a lot of people ask me, was I nervous? Right now, I'm not nervous, I'm emotional. For me, this touches me very close. You know, we had a picture of my brother up here who overdosed from heroin addiction, 2 cousins who have overdosed from a heroin addiction, and too many friends. And even through all that, at a point in my life, I continue to use heroin on a daily basis. And I didn't know or didn't care if that was me. But for me, something changed in 2015, and I made a choice to do better with my life so I wouldn't be one of those people. You know, it has been a challenge. It continues to be a challenge. But for me, I'm committed to it. And I don't want to see anyone else lose a life. I don't want to see another mother heartbreak. I don't want to see no more kids heartbreak. You know, I don't want a community to look at these people and think that they were just lost and that's what they deserve, because no one deserves that. You know, so me, myself, and an army of others in the recovery community are committed to saving lives today. You know, I never looked at my life as I was going to help someone and show them the right path. But today, that's not just my job, but that's who I am. And I will continue to do that on a daily basis with the help of others. You know, because I sit here and I continue to look at these pictures. You know, I continue to look over at my mom and my wife and seeing the joy that they have, you know. But my heart also breaks to see the mothers and kids and wives of the individuals that were lost, and my heart goes out to them. And I ask, as a community, that we support those that are still struggling with this addiction. Because I remember being a young man and always hearing it takes a village to raise a child, and that still stands true today. It's going to take all of us to save lives. You know, we may lose some, but we don't want to have them what ifs. What if I did this? What if I did that? You know. So tonight I ask you to make a choice to dedicate yourself to helping someone that is struggling. Those individuals may not want to talk to you. They may be mad at you for you wanting to help them. But like we say in the recovery community, I'd rather hurt their feelings than have to walk over their grave. And that's the truth of it. You know, I get to call Alan by his first name today. And my life wasn't always like that. You know, but it's been a pleasure for the last month, 2 months, going to different high schools with him and talking to the youth. Because for me, that's where my heroin addiction started, my sophomore year in high school. The first time I used heroin was in Westminster High School. So that's my way of giving back. I have kids myself, and I'm open and honest with them about my past, also my future. But I would like to end with saying that if anyone in this room is struggling today, or if anyone in this room knows someone struggling, reach out. There's help all around this community. There's too many resources for another individual to die in our community. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Jermaine. And you can hear how much Jermaine just speaks from his heart. He does that in the high school programs all the time. I'm up here with a script, but Jermaine just goes right off the top of his head. It's impressive. Our next speaker has worked in the recovery industry for over 8 years in roles ranging from treatment advocate to director of operations of an adolescent facility. He is currently Senior Business Development Officer of Recovery Centers of America. As a person in long-term recovery, he has 9 years sober. After losing both parents, niece, nephew, and many friends to the disease of addiction, he has pursued a lifelong goal of being a resource to anyone battling substance use disorder. He is also a graduate of Palm Beach University with a degree in Christian ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful to have with us this evening Elliot Slattery.
Hello, I'm an alcoholic named Elliot. No, this is so, like, I was telling Evan before this, like, it's one thing to kind of tell your story in recovery. Like, people think that's a vulnerable thing to do, but after a while, it's just kind of something you're used to, right? But to talk about something as close to the heart as, like, losing my loved ones, like, I never go too deep into detail about that kind of stuff, you know? Especially being a person in recovery, it becomes something you almost, like, you don't get used to it, but it, like, happens so much. You just keep going, keep trying to help the next person, keep trying to do what you got to do, you know? So I thought about things to say about this, right? So I lost both of my parents. So I grew up in a home that was very much like the alcoholic home, you know? My dad was a Vietnam veteran who, after Vietnam, kind of turned to that way of life to cope with everything he's seen, and he saw a lot. And I was thinking on the ride here, listening to Desperado way more times than I needed to, because that was his song, and inevitably, I think he meant that for me as well. And I was just crying, thinking, my dad was my best friend. My dad was literally my hero. He was the kind of person who could be down on his luck and still find a way to help every single person around him. It was crazy. I mean, we'd be living in these flop houses that somehow he conjured up. And he'd have like 5 people sleeping on a couch on the ground like they need homes too. He'd be like, this is our family. This is what we got. You know what I mean? If we don't take care of each other, who we taking care of? And that was the kind of guy he was. You know, and I think there's sometimes this image of what it's like to be a person struggling with substance use disorder. And what they don't see is, like, we could create communities out there as well, you know, and, like, really take care of each other too when we're in the thick of it, when we think no one is going to love us or trust us or we're unlovable or whatever. And my dad personified what that looked like to me. And I thought about my mom and everything she had been through in her life. And, you know, my sister was kind of always out there running and gunning too. My brother was kind of like a normal guy. We don't know how that happened, really. He's actually a corrections officer, believe it or not. And I used to always be like, are you waiting for Dad to show up? Like, what are you doing? Yeah, like my mom, at the end of her life, I was still using when she passed. And nobody was talking to her anymore. And I am so grateful that I loved my family so much, I kept showing up. Even in my struggles, I got to see her the day before she passed. And at her funeral, I'm just going to show you a stark contrast, right? At my mom's funeral, I'm using, I use it as an excuse. It got me doing more than I had done. That was like the catalyst of my deeper use, because I always fancied myself a mama's boy, you know? She always had my back, and I always had a place to stay with her when I was really struggling, and I didn't even go in the funeral. I stayed in the car, and I got wasted. And when my dad passed away, I was 5 years sober. I was living in Florida, getting my degree at Palm Beach Atlantic, and I was broke as a joke. And somehow God provided the money for me to fly up here multiple times. He was in a coma for 90 days. And I flew up, and, you know, I'm from a family where we just use and drink. That's what we do. And my whole recovery, nobody really believed that I was actually sober. They were like, you got to be doing something. And when I flew up for my dad in the hospital, here we are gathered around, most people not in a great space. And they see me just praying by his bedside every single day. They see me in the chapel every single day. Actually, people at the hospital thought I was the chaplain because they'd see me there every single day praying, writing the 3rd step prayer in the prayer book in the chapel in the hospital. And I'd pray with families and stuff like that. And my family started looking at me like, what's up with you? Like, what are you actually doing? And from there, I wish my dad, I mean, I know he saw it, but like, my sister asked for help. My niece asked for help. My cousin asked for help. And it was simply by asking God to be there with us. That's my thing with recovery. I was thinking that this morning. Like, recovery to me is my relationship with God. That's what recovery is for me. If I don't have that, I'm not in recovery to me. You know what I mean? Like, that's my deal. Because that's the only thing that can explain it. And I was also thinking, too, like, what can I say about what happens when you lose a loved one, right? It's something you can't really express to somebody. How, like, when you're in the grocery store and, like, Gypsy by Fleetwood Mac plays, you're like, okay, Mom, I see you shopping with me today, you know? Or, shoot, anytime Desperado plays, I'm pretty much just done, you know? And I was thinking about the fire they all had inside of them. You know, my nephew Stosh, my niece Holly. And I've been, like, pretty hyperactive my whole entire recovery. And I can't help but know inside of me that their fire just went straight into me. And it might have been dim while I was out there, but when I got sober, it was like fireworks going off. Because I could not run around and tell everybody how grateful I was for an opportunity to live a completely different way of life, one that I never expected was possible. For someone like me who came from where I was from, that was not possible for us. The words recovery were not spoken in our house. That was for somebody different, somebody who wasn't us. And sometimes I cry, wondering if I'm going to be the only one who made it out. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps me going. Because in recovery, we're a family. Just like my dad taught me about the other people struggling on the streets. And if I can help another one of my family get here, well, that's what I'm going to keep doing. And I'm going to ask God for strength every single day to do that. I think that's my time. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Weber. I am the Community Education Liaison for the Office of the State's Attorney. And tonight, I have the honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Hal Hathaway is the former board chair of the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence for both the Maryland and the national office. The National Council on Drug and Alcoholism the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence of Maryland focuses on raising public awareness, sensitivity on issues of alcoholism and drug dependence in Maryland and across the country. Hal is a commercial real estate broker and has raised millions of dollars for advocacy as it relates to substance use disorder and mental health. On a personal note, Hal has been sober and in recovery for 37 years. And I'm proud to say he is a friend, a mentor, and in my family tree of recovery. I give you Hal Hathaway.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you all. Can you all hear me in the back? Everybody hear me? That's too bad. Anyway, you know, as Tim just gave you a quick bio, I've been sober. Last week was my 74th birthday. 37 years. I've been sober slightly more than half my life. It's like, wow, I've never done anything except breathe for half my life, consistently. And in listening to you know, both Elliot and Jermaine, I'm thinking I have probably been sober longer than they've been alive, okay, literally, which is good and bad. It's good for me and my sobriety. The bad side is I'm old, okay, very simple. But we have the same disease. And, I came into the rooms of recovery. I was 36 years old. And I was given, and I have to say this, I see all these people in uniforms, like right in front of me. And I had a lot of drunk driving arrests in numerous states. I walk in here and see all these cops, I'm going, boy, oh boy, 30-some years ago, I'd have left, But I was given an option to go to jail or go to Alcoholics Anonymous several times a week, get a court slip signed. I assume they still have court slips out there. And check in on Friday with a monitor, polite way of saying, I guess, probation officer, I don't know, and give a urine sample. And if the urine sample tested dirty, they could implement a jail sentence. Now, at that time, I was not an alcoholic because despite being a resident of the state of Maryland, I lived in a state of denial. I did not have this disease, okay? Very simple. And I wasn't about to go to jail. I couldn't go to jail, couldn't be an alcoholic. I wore a suit to work. That defined me. I wore a coat and tie to work. I lost several jobs as a result of alcoholism, but I was still a professional by my definition. And I sort of figured, I'm going to figure out this drill and how to get around these weekly tests and, go on with my life and return to drinking. I never figured it out. Still haven't figured it out, but I did stop trying ultimately. My concept of alcoholism, my concept of God, everything was askew. My concept of myself, basically, was very much askew. And quite often it still can be. And I want to define myself further. I am very active in the recovery community. A year plus ago, I moved down to North Carolina. As a result of being sober for quite a while, I got to retire, and I moved to North Carolina. I go to a lot of meetings down there. It was I moved to a community. I had been there a couple times. I liked it. I didn't know anybody there. I just thought this will be nice, and I have not been disappointed in my selection. But I remember a friend said years ago, he said, we're thinking of moving, and he was a normal person, and he said, I wish I was in AA. And I said, well, why would you want to be in AA? You're a normal person. Because we're going to move, and when people move in AA, they make a lot of friends immediately. I'm going, okay, that makes sense. I have proven that theory in North Carolina. By going to meetings, I have made a lot of friends just like me. Same stories, different faces is how I describe it. Young people, people my age, et cetera, et cetera. For that, I am grateful for among other things, but that's one of them. Part of my story, I probably did not have the same background you had, Jermaine, not even close. I come from my parents were successful, or my father was successful. I went to private schools. I went to all of them. Very simple. I was switching schools every year. Sometimes I had the opportunity to switch in the middle of the year. It wasn't because I was in demand, but, I was, as we say, you go in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, the only thing that happens, you take the rum out of the fruitcake. You still got a fruitcake, very simple. I was a fruitcake. I added the rum. 20-some years later, we took the rum out of it. I was still a fruitcake, and I can say that today also. And listening, when Tim asked me 3 or 4 months ago, I'm thinking, yeah, sure, what the hell? I don't know what he's talking about. Yes. I can't say I'm busy, the first Monday in May when he's asking me something in December, And then in the past week or so, I started thinking, and I talked to him a couple times. And I talked to a friend of mine who'd been to this event, and I found out what the audience was and the reason behind this. And I'm going, wow, this is overpowering. Very simple. I was looking at that screen, all those pictures up there, and I'm going, I don't know if I recognized any of them. I had to stop looking after a while because it became very emotional. And as I'm sure for a lot of you all out here, you knew those people. You knew a lot of those people. And I've been thinking about, well, what do I say to these people? A lot of them, I'm sure, are in recovery. Obviously, I'm quite certain the majority of you lost family members to this disease, whether it's opioids or alcohol or whatever. You've lost something. I was thinking about this. I lost a lot of things as a practicing drunk. And I was thinking about this in anticipation of this. I could replace everything I lost. Very simple. If I lost a house, if I lost a girlfriend, if I lost money, all of that stuff was ex-wife. All of that was replaceable. You bury a family member, that's not replaceable. That is totally different. I mean, I can empathize, I can sympathize, but I've not experienced that. That's just different. I can't describe the feeling that you all might have, and then I feel. It's like, wow, these people are in a different league. They've, they've gone through hell as a result of this disease. And among other things, it makes me feel very grateful, that I am sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I looked at those pictures, and I think of the people I know who died drunk or died as a result of drugs. And without fail, I always have the same reaction when I think about those people. I think about one guy specifically. He'd be my age if he was still alive, and he died about a dozen years ago. And his obit, somebody was quoted as saying, he lived a full life. I mean, that's bullshit, excuse me. If he had been sober, he would be, he'd still be alive. He didn't live a full life. He led a full life as a drunk. He lost several jobs, et cetera. No different than anybody else's story who's a drug addict or a drunk. But that one stays with me because somebody said he led a full life. And that was another drinking buddy of his. He said, no, he didn't. This disease is a goddamn killer. It pisses me off quite often. Very simple. I looked up the definition of disease this morning, looking for filler. And I sort of paraphrased it myself, but it's a harmful deviation from the normal state of a human. I thought, well, that's pretty accurate. Very simple. The disease concept. I was in the Marine Corps in the late 60s. When I first came in these rooms, I could quit any time. Hell, I'd get a cold, I'd quit for a day or two. Real simple. And I had a lot of the nevers. I never drank in the morning. I would drink until the morning. There's a difference, very simple. I never drank at lunchtime, but I'd go out at the end of the day and drink till 5 or 6 o'clock the next morning. I said I never lost a job. I lost 2 jobs as a direct result of alcoholic behavior. And for many years, I thought I got better jobs. I got better paying jobs. I didn't like the jobs, but I got better paying jobs. I was going nowhere. I was just spinning my wheels. And then, fortunately, I've been in the same field, actually, since I got sober, and I'm very fortunate for that. But, excuse me, speaking of diseases, and this is somewhat humorous and fortunate for me, 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And, when the doctor told me I had throat cancer, my immediate reaction was, okay, well, now what do we do? Not like, oh, Christ, I'm going to die. I should get my will in order, whatever. Who am I going to tell? Who's going to take care of me? Is this woman going to feel sympathy for me and let me sleep with her? I mean, all this crap, I mean, that's, good alcoholic thinking. And I went through a very successful radiation chemotherapy treatment program. For which I was very grateful and fortunate. But I was also given, and I'm sure there are a lot of cancer survivors in here, this huge binder that was just loaded with information about what to expect and what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. And it had several pages of support groups. And the first support group, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't think I looked beyond that. I said, I got this licked. Very simple. I'm in AA. This is going to work. And both, excuse me, both Jermaine and Elliot mentioned a relationship with a higher power. And I'm not here to, preach anything in that regard. I don't even know if I consider myself a religious person, but I do consider myself a spiritual person because I recognized, it took me 6 years to recognize it, the role that God plays in my life by keeping me alive and keeping me sober and letting me come in here potentially and talk to you all. And I, as a result of my career and also as a result of, some areas, some nonprofit work that I've been able to do as a result of being sober, I've been all over the country on behalf of this disease. And I've spoken to large groups before, never with the profile that this group has. This one made me nervous. It's like, holy moly, these people have lost a lot more than I have. I don't want to offend anybody. I want them to think I'm the greatest speaker they've ever heard. All sorts of stuff. Tim told me who a couple of his prior speakers were, athletes, news people on television. Thinking, well, I'm going to tell these people they've dropped down a whole level, a couple levels here, because they're not getting that, just getting an old guy who's sober. That's about it. But, doing what you described, Jermaine, going in the schools. Where are you? Your field being in the recovery business. You know, as Tim referenced, a board member of the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependency, and we are the oldest advocacy organization in America. A woman named Marty Mann, and some of y'all might recognize the name. Marty Mann was considered, still is considered, to be the first woman to have long-term sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. NCAD, under a different name, but same organization today, was founded in 1944 at the suggestion of Bill Wilson, who was Marty Mann's sponsor, who said, you've got to do this because AA is very limited as to what it can do in the public eye. And hence, that organization has gone on and expanded since then. Excuse me. And it's a nationwide affiliate organization. You know, we have a very strong affiliate in Maryland, and some of you, I saw her son here earlier, might know our director, Nancy Rosencohen. We represent all the counties, we represent all the treatment providers in Annapolis. It's a very effective organization. And you know, you are a peer counselor. I mean, this is an organization, when you get home this evening, NCADD Maryland, go online, look it up. If you're wondering if there's some way that you can contribute more to the community, more to people who have been through what y'all have been through, look this up and you're going to find a home. Not to take anything away from what you do in the schools. You know, in talking to Attorney Culver beforehand, he was talking about his school programs. And on a humorous note, one of the schools I went to years ago, we did a program on drugs and alcohol in the upper school for a couple years, 9 through 12. And after a couple years, you know, the 9th and 10th graders always had questions. The kids, juniors and seniors, they knew it all. They didn't have any questions, okay? A couple years into the program, the 9th and the 10th graders didn't have questions anymore. They knew it all. It's like, we got to take this program into the middle school, which is what he mentioned. He said, guys, we got to take it into the 5th grade. It's unbelievable, you know, the disease of addiction, whether it's drugs, alcohol, opioids, you know, I don't know. And that was not my strong suit, probably in a major part due to the fact I'm old. You know, that would have been socially unacceptable to shoot heroin, particularly, you know, when you're going downtown and working with a suit on in those days. But, excuse me, I also have dry mouth. Occasionally I have to re-moisture my mouth. Oh, thank you. Excuse me. But the bottom line, as I said, is I'm still sober today. You know, and that means a lot to me, and hopefully it means something to you all. And I'm a first nighter also, which means, you know, I came in these rooms, I was drunk on Sunday, I was in court Monday, I was in AA Tuesday. Friday, I'm giving a urine sample to some guy. I mean, on a humorous note, I used to wear a coat and tie over to where I had to check in. And the neighborhood I went to, I sort of stood out in a coat and tie, like really stood out. And all these guys would come up and say, I need a lawyer, can you help me? And I'm going, no. I mean, I'm here to check in, you know. I was the best dressed guy within 10 miles, probably. And they, you know, they all thought that I was an attorney. Had I been smart, I'd have said, yeah, here, give me $1,000, I'll see you next week. But, you know, but it's, you know, I didn't understand what I was getting into. Didn't understand it, didn't feel the need for it, you know. Today I understand it, and I feel the need for it more today. I mean, I noticed a lot of young people as I was coming in here. Of course, young by my definition is under 50 these days. But I'm thinking, wow, you know, these kids have a hell of an opportunity now. If you can stay clean and sober, you have a hell of an opportunity. As Tim mentioned, I've been on the board of the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependency for a long time, on and off the board. I'm on both boards at the present time. And it's taken me all over the country. You know, very simple. I led the organization nationally for 4 years. I was elected board chair. And four of us came up this evening from Baltimore. And in that car, we had 140 some years worth of sobriety, the four of us, which was amazing. And none of us probably would have known each other had it not been for being in recovery, you know, for this disease and being sober. But I had the opportunity to lead the national organization. And again, I mean, I interject a lot of humor into my life, hopefully, and hopefully into yours. But when I went on that national board, I had to give them a resume, and I had to fill out an application and biography and all this crap. And 3/4 of our board were MDs and PhDs. These were guys from all over the country, major universities, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going, this isn't good. Education, I put HSD-LM. And they called me the next day. He said, what does HSD-LM stand for? As I said, I went to a lot of schools, didn't get a lot of education, but I did go to a lot of schools. High school diploma, licensed motorist is as far as I took it, okay, academically. I say that because those people, after a couple years of being on that board, elected me to lead that organization. I got to go to Washington. I got to hang out with senators and congressmen. I spent time with Ringo Starr and Joe Walsh and all these movie stars and all this other good stuff, all people who are sober. I played golf with drug czars. As Tim referenced, I've had the opportunity to raise a lot of money on behalf of this disease. And Attorney Culver mentioned it. It's not just 12-step programs, unfortunately, anymore. It's gone in a lot more detail. It's beds, it's money for programs for treatment, et cetera. One of the functions of the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependency, because AA and NA is the same, are prevented. I mean, they're just self-sustaining. You drop a couple bucks in the basket and hopefully you cover the rent on the church and terrible coffee. But, that's something that, when you go home, just take a look at the website. It is something you might be able to participate in. We all know the saying, misery loves company, and I thought, that's wonderful. But recovery loves company is sort of my adage. You all out here, a lot of you, and Tim mentioned, some of you might be here for the first time, having lost a loved one in the past year, and you don't know what to expect. You're going to meet a lot of people who've been through the same pain. It's like they went through the same pain. This is what they did. They got through it. Very simple. It's a problem shared is not necessarily a problem. Okay, which is easy for me to say because, as I referenced earlier, I've not buried a family member. That's something I just can't totally identify with. Sympathize, empathize, all of the above. But, I get a little lost after that. But, recovery, I wake up in the morning and I've got two options. I can stay sober, in which case I got lots of options. I can do lots of things. Or I can go get high and get drunk, in which case I'm out of options. We say it's a selfish program for selfish people. I understand what that means. I'm a selfish person. More is better. If I stay clean and sober, I can do more. Very simple. And that's what I want. It's for your loved ones. It might be a little late. But and I listen to people who have lost, family members or people in the program who I've known, or people who have been out, in and out quite often. I'm thinking, boy, you're running a high risk. You might not make it back in. Very simple. But nobody comes back into the rooms having been out and said, yeah, I was really having a good time, but I thought I'd come back anyway. That's not how it works. You're going to suffer. So I've been sober 37 years. I've been through far more pain sober than I ever went through drunk, because in part it's just straight math. Real simple. I've been around a long time. I've buried parents and good friends and been a eulogist numerous times to several people who died sober, who I never would have met. And I had the opportunity to speak when they died sober. And these were great guys. And that's one of the advantages I've, gotten out of being sober in these rooms. So, again, and I don't know if I've fulfilled my time requirement or not, but I know I'm nervous anyway. But, again, I hope I'm not necessarily preaching. I'm a lucky guy, very simple, to be sober, for the length of time I have, to have the friends in sobriety that I have, to see guys in uniform and not have to make a U-turn, real simple, to listen to somebody who's hadn't been alive as long as I've been sober and say, I like what he had to say. I understand what he had to say or she had to say. Very simple. To be able to learn that and to appreciate that and to, empathize and sympathize with you. And I'm somewhat grateful they took those pictures down. I said, I can't look at that. I'm going to cry. If that thing's running while I'm talking, I'm going to face that way. So I hope you've gotten something out of this. I appreciate the opportunity to come up here. The opportunity is presented to me because I am sober. As I said, I'm grateful for sober. I think Elliot mentioned the most critical component of my sobriety, and I think you touched on it, is a relationship with a higher power, which does not mean I have to be a religious person. It just means I have to believe in God. God doesn't want me to go get screwed up. I still have shortcomings and, et cetera, et cetera. But, and most often I recognize it. I don't drink. As I said, drugs weren't part of my story. It's substance abuse. I don't use a foreign substance. I don't put a harmful deviation into my system that's going to cause me havoc, that's going to cause me to wake up in places I don't know where they are. To have to go into a courtroom and say, well, and when they say, well, what were you doing? And you're going, well, I really don't remember because I was in a blackout. If that's what he said I was doing, I believe him. Very simple. Not to have to lie to a wife, to an employer. To be able to walk down the street and look people in the eye and not have to cross the street when I see somebody coming, oh, Christ, I don't want to see them. I did that to him or that to her or something along that line. I mean, so it's a lot easier. It's a whole lot easier. So I'm sort of done. But I want to, I appreciate you all being here. This is a very impressive event. And I don't know if all the other counties do this or what other municipalities do this. But, this is like overwhelming. And this, gives people an opportunity to come together. Yeah, that's my son. That's my daughter. That's my husband. My parents. And to find somebody else who went through the same thing. How did you face that? How did you get through that? This is how I got through it. And maybe part of that is getting on your knees. It is for me, very simple, and recognizing God didn't want me to have the same lifestyle I used to have, very simple, despite what I might want. I mean, there were a lot of aspects of that I thought, these are pretty good. They were pretty selfish is what they were. So that's, sort of where a brief, let me give you a more detailed plug of the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. We're down in downtown Baltimore. And as I think I mentioned, we represent the 23 counties in Baltimore City and their drug and alcohol programs in Annapolis. We represent the treatment providers. We run the Turk Conference. It's a one-day educational seminar at the Convention Center in downtown Baltimore. We get 1,600 attendees to that. And it's designed to provide, among other things, CEUs for all the individual treatment providers in the market. In the Maryland market. We bring in speakers from all over the country, as a matter of fact. And not unlike this, we haven't had an in-person one in the past 2 years. This year we will in September. We've had virtual, and they've gotten 800 to 1,000 people, but we're looking to, get that number back up. But, we represent the people in these rooms, very simple. You've got questions, you want to provide assistance, you want to volunteer in some capacity, go online and look. Please do. Do yourself a favor. You would be doing us a favor also. We got $1 million budget. Doesn't mean we wouldn't take your money either. But, it's a valuable asset for a lot of people. It is a necessity. It goes well beyond AA and NA, and as I said, I'm very active in AA, and I'm grateful for that. This is the next step up. Thank you.
Okay, we want to take a moment to recognize a couple members of the community. Elizabeth, you want to come up? We'd like to take an opportunity to recognize two individuals who have really stood out and made a difference in our community in the fight to reduce overdose numbers. The first award is the Message of Hope Award. The Message of Hope Award is given to a person or an organization who offers a message of sobriety and works to offer a better way of life and hope to those in the community who struggle with substance use disorders. Our recipient this year has been a deputy with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office for 10 years. He is the community liaison for New Windsor and Union Bridge and is also the homeless liaison for the Sheriff's Office. He works closely with peers in the community to assist individuals to treatment who are in crisis. He is naloxone trained and has saved numerous lives as a result of administering naloxone. This deputy is a prime example of community policing at its best. This year, the Message of Hope Award goes to Master Deputy Brian Calusi. The next award is the Robert Kirkland Award. The Robert Kirkland Award is presented to an individual who goes above and beyond their regular job requirements in their field of work to help those in the community touched by substance use disorder. Their hard work often goes unnoticed, and the motivation is for the simple act of helping others. Bob Kirkland passed away in 2017. For those of you who did not know Bob, he was a veteran of the U.S. Navy and fought in Vietnam. He began his career with parole and probation in the drinking driving monitor program. But Bob is better remembered for his work as a court liaison for the Mountain Manor Treatment Center and was one of the first people in long-term recovery to work in the court system. If someone was willing to go to treatment, Bob would do what was ever in his powers and sometimes beyond his powers to get that person into treatment. I remember handling a bail review one day where Bob came to me and said he had a bed available for the person to go into treatment. I told Bob that I was fine with the person going into treatment, but that person also had a warrant in Baltimore County that was holding them in jail as well. Bob walked away, but a few minutes later he came back holding up his old flip phone. Bob said he wanted me to talk to the person on the phone, so I did. On the phone was a judge from Baltimore County who assured me that if Bob had a bed for the person, Baltimore County would allow the person to enter treatment when the time came. That was the influence of Bob Kirkland. This year's recipient of the Robert Kirkland Award works with On Our Own. For those of you who are not familiar with On Our Own, it's a nonprofit organization in the county that promotes recovery empowerment, mental health, substance abuse awareness, and offers weekly support groups for those in need. This person has been the executive director of On Our Own in Carroll County in Maryland since 2001. She is extremely hardworking and dedicated to the needs of the clients as well as to the community. She is also a strong advocate for the Good Samaritan law and has hosted numerous trainings at On Our Own on the law that were given both by our office and by Beth Schmidt. This person's passion and dedication are motivated from the loss of her beautiful daughter, Brittany. She is a guiding light that brings awareness to mental health and substance abuse awareness to the homeless in Carroll County. It is my honor to present this year's Robert Kirkland Award to Lori Galloway. So tonight we gather together to do the pure and simple act of saying the names of our loved ones, family, and friends that we have lost to the tragedy of addiction. So at this time I would ask that Tim Weber come up for the reading of the names and the candle lighting.
I'm honored to be a part of the 7th Annual Overdose and Prevention Vigil. My role at the State's Attorney's Office is Community Education Liaison, and I'm proud of that role, and I love the job that I have. But the most important role that I have is I'm a person in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder. I have not had a drink or a drug, and I've been substance-free since November 8th, 2003. Thank you. And I say that proudly. Tonight I'm going to read the names of all the people that we lost to an overdose from 2020 to 2022. And some of the names that haven't been read in the live vigil. While we wish we could read every name, and I can assure you, we wish that and we talk about it, but obviously it's not feasible. Tonight, this part is very emotional for me because I watched the video and the names that I'm going to read, I know so many of those individuals that are in the video in the names that I'm going to read. And I also know and am very close with many of the people that were left behind, the family members, the mothers, the fathers, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters. And for them, my heart breaks. But there's also some hope in this room. Along with myself and the three speakers tonight, there's a lot of people in recovery that are in this room. And I know the lights are down, but I want to do this so that everybody can see. If you could turn the lights on just 1 second. I want everybody that's in recovery in this room, whatever that recovery looks like to you, to please stand up right now. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for being here, for standing in the gap for people who haven't made it to recovery, for the many friends that we have lost. From the bottom of my heart, I thank each and every one of you. Completely off script, now I have to find where I was. Sorry, Alan. At this time, I would like to ask Sheriff Jim DeWeese, Chief Tom Ledwell, Lieutenant Rebecca Bosley, and Councilman Kevin Dayhoff to come up to the front. Jim, if you could light your candle off that, and then light the other guys, everybody else's. As the names are read, if you could step in the middle aisle, walk up to the front with your candle, and light it off of the three people that we have standing up front. And then when you light thank you, Jim. The four people that we have standing up front. And then as you light your candle, just kind of encircle the portico. I want to apologize before I even start. I try very hard to get each and every one of these names perfect. But before I even start, I want to say that some of them I might not get perfect, but I can tell you in my heart, I'm reading this out of love and out of respect. Lee Thomas Barnes. Emily Lenore Barnes. Robert Christian Beatty. Haley Nash Beagley. Timothy Dean Berta. Charles Francis Billings. Tara Allie Binkley. Anthony David Bond. Eric Scott Benito. Scotty Broadfoot Jr. Tyler Quinn Carty. Daryl Curtis Brown. Jordan Nicole Cashmire. Justin Bo Clark. Nicholas Cole. Jesse Constantine. Zachary Taylor Cooney. Jessica Diane Cooper. Teresa Marie Cowman. Gary Wayne Craybill. Larry William Crow. Brian Kenneth Cullison. Joshua David Cunningham. Melissa Michelle Davis. Leland Bell Davis. Robert T. Della. Dawn Michelle Dujani. Colin Dupel. Nicholas Vincent Fertitta. Anthony Flakes. Vivian Wynn Gainey. Eric Christopher Gartrell. Brenda Violet Gates. Austin Goodman. Brad Greenberg. Jennifer Ann Gordon. Justin Grooms. Matthew Keith Haynes. Robert Haynes Jr. Tracy Lynn Harbison. Greg Warren Harding. William Albert Harris. Carol Ann Hartman. Sean Jacob Hetridge. Teresa Lee Horrell. Allison Joe Holiday-Yoke. Wayne Monroe Hoover. Kenneth Wayne Hornung. Timothy Keith Howard. John Christopher Genowiak. Heidi Annette Jenkins. Michelle Lynn Johnson. Jonathan Lee Carnegie. Owen Dennis Killeran. Jessica Lynn King. James Scott Lambert. Patrick Colton Leatherwood. Michael Sean Lewis. Ernie Lee Levacy. Walter George Lupater. Sarah Ann Mala. Michael William Mason. Anthony David Mahler. Paul Tyrone Mayfield. Crystal Lynn McCarter. Lauren McMonigal. Alan Wayne Middle. Christina Lynn Morales. Joseph Franklin Moran. Richard Monday. Richard Naylor III. Samantha Ogle. Zachary Keith Honesty. Evan Jesus Osorio Yanez. Madeline Nicole Resty. Robert Arthur Price. Brent Tyler Probst. Vandiver Lee Rash. Kathleen May Red Miles. Andrea Andrea Rayner, Joseph Earl Roebuck, Angeline Mary Saponair, Michael Frank Schaefer, James Edward Schmier, Benjamin Cole Shamer, Hunter Timothy Smith, Kendall Ann Smith, Todd Jeremy Snyder, Dawson Angus Thomas, Carrie Dean Elizabeth Tucker, Lawrence Kevin Walker, Janine Ann Wallace, Josh Wallace, Richard Ricky Walters, Carly Wantz, Lindsay Renee Webb, Conrad Michael Weebler, Matthew Samuel White, James A. Widmer, Larry Allen Williams, Thomas Richard Whitbecker, Hani Wudecki, Rachel Grace Zhao, Eric David Zepp, Lisa Michelle Zoud, James Clark Zumbron. And at this time, I would like to offer anyone that has lost someone in the past, who would like to come up and has a candle, at this time, come up for the years previous to the years that I read and light a candle.
At this time, I would like to call Deacon Michael Dvorak to lead us in the benediction. Deacon Mike is a deacon at St. Joseph's Catholic Community in Eldersburg. He is a licensed clinical social worker who has worked with those suffering from substance use disorder for 30 years. Deacon Mike is also a resident of Westminster. So Deacon Mike, I'd ask you to come forward at this time.
Good evening, all. Peace and all good things to you. After almost 31 years now, working in the addiction field, alcohol, drugs, gambling, and many others. On this journey with countless men and women, young kids, teens, and alike families, I've grown to understand, as all those in this room know, in the world of addiction, there's no black or white, there's no rich or poor, educated, uneducated, none of it matters. We all understand that addiction is the great equalizer. It does not discriminate, does not judge, does not care. It's patient, it's cunning. It causes pain to those who struggle with it, to those who try to help, and to families. My friends, all of us here share tonight the pain of those we've lost in dealing with this thing we call addiction, and certainly looking around the room, I'm moved as you all stand here remembering 31 years of many people I lost as clients, as friends, as fellow counselors who struggle with the disease. I've grown to be hateful of addiction, to hate the things that it does. But I've also, in that anger and through that pain of watching people be harmed by it, strive more in my life to want to end it. I've grown to be ever more resilient and hopeful for a day when we don't have to have events like this, because we all have the resources we could ever need to help those who need it, and we need so much more. This scene, these names, are the sobering reality that though we're doing better, we have a lot of work to do together, and it needs all of us together, all levels, to end this loss we're witnessing by what we see tonight and have witnessed firsthand. I would ask that if you are so inclined, knowing that we are here from a wide variety of faith, beliefs, traditions, to bow your head with me and pray to the God of your understanding, your higher power, spirit, force within you, the one you go to in your meditation. And we pray. Most high, glorious God, we gather here tonight to remember all those we have so tragically lost to addiction over these years. We are humbled by this vigil tonight, and as much as we grow to understand it together, we learn to recover also. Lord, together we share the pain of such loss we see here. Lord, together we strive to work together to end this. We pray, Lord, for those in politics who can help just by understanding what is possible and what we can all do together as a nation in our cities and communities and homes to end this suffering and to make a road to treatment and recover better, easier, and access never denied. May they open their minds and hearts to see for what it is, and not for what they're necessarily told it is. To understand that it's not red or blue issue, it's all of our issues. It's something for all of us to do something about. We pray for those in the judicial and legal systems that they too may understand the need for patience and understanding. Lord, we help, and we need their help. Help them to realize the power they have to intervene positively in the lives of people who need to be heard and helped and treated with dignity, lifted up to a clear road to find change and not block opportunity. Let us realize, Lord, that this is where good things can start for many if we give them the chance. We pray this night for police, firefighters, EMTs, doctors, nurses, counselors, those who run programs, treatment facilities, peer support people, therapists, all those in the front line of this fight. Lord, first of all, we thank you for them, what they do, and ask you to keep them safe in their work as they intervene. Give them the resilience needed to fight this battle, to never give up, and for the abundance of patience and love needed to help those who sometimes initially don't want to help themselves. Lord, they realize that it may not be the first, second, third, fourth, 10th time, It may be the 15th, 16th, 25th time before their efforts may finally reach someone, before that person decides to stop listening. Lord, help them hear their efforts may finally be reach someone before the person decides to end their lives or succumb to this disease. Lord, let them hear and live the words that you said, I have come to set the captives free. It's not an easy road, Lord, but they do your will, and through that, Lord, we ask you to help them become more resilient and to never give up. Lord, give them the strength of your love to help set those captive by this disease free from their addiction. We pray for family members, parents, grandparents, spouses, siblings, friends, and the like. We know, Lord, we understand the special burdens they endure as they try to help, many times despite themselves and their own needs. Help them, Lord, to realize as much as they want to make someone better, they need to be good with themselves and to one another. Help them to realize, Lord, sometimes saying no may be the best answer to start change. Not only the person they are trying to help, but in themselves, without feeling guilty, Lord. Help them, Lord, to understand we do this out of love. Help those they are trying to so desperately to help realize that was the motivation for their no, and perhaps make amends and help that person make amends for not seeing it because of their addiction. For those here in this room now, Lord, that have been clean and sober for hours, days, weeks, years, always remember the way this works is a day at a time with others to help the way. We do not recover in solitude, Lord. Help us to realize, as you taught us, that our lives were meant for greater things, but most of all to serve and love one another. For those who continue to struggle with this disease, may they persevere. May they open their minds and hearts. May they listen to those moments of clarity and sobriety when you can reach them and say, enough, and let it be enough. And they say, it's enough. Give them the strength to overcome the compulsive behaviors that keep them captive through their addictions, that intense fear that keeps them trapped and afraid to move, to heal. Give them the strength to realize the road to recovery can be their road as well. It's a hard road, Lord, and we know that this what we're doing tonight can make it easier. Lord, help them reach out for help. For all those here who lost someone, Lord, their pain is unique, but also very much the same. Lord, some of these lives have been taken and ended, many before they had the chance to start. We see the devastation, the pain left behind. Send your love, most gracious God. Send your peace to lighten the pain. Give them the strength to help others to become your voice, your hands, your ultimate love to others who desperately need the help and the ear to hear them. In our pain, we find strength together here, Lord. We find hope together. May we come to believe in your light that will see us all through the darkness of the chains of addiction and bring us to understand that through you, Abba, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, Father, all things are possible. And in your name, we ask all of these things. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon Mike. I want to thank everyone for coming out and supporting one another this evening. Hopefully you go away this evening taking some comfort and knowing that the ones we've lost will never be forgotten. I need to give a special thanks to St. John's for allowing us to use this wonderful facility. Thank you to Jermaine, Elliot, and Hal for sharing your stories with us this evening. A special thanks to Becky Gray, who is responsible for much of the planning and organization of the evening, Ned Coyne, Elizabeth Klinger, and Tim Weber, who were on the planning committee, and other members of the state's attorney's office for the time and effort they put in, not only this evening, but for the days coming up. This concludes this evening's drug overdose and prevention vigil. You can extinguish your candles at this time. On your way out, please feel free to take with you a memory stone. The memory stones are there for folks to take. Write the name of a loved one you've lost to an overdose on the memory stone and leave it somewhere special. It could be a room in your home, the backyard, or a park, somewhere you feel connected to. Thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of your evening. Oh, you're welcome.